My guest today is Toby Haberkorn. She's an experienced executive search consultant and certified job search strategist. She enjoys working with mature individuals who are crosswords in their careers and lives. She's known for her job market knowledge, strategic expertise, and mentoring. She helps individuals determine and achieve their goals. She has a book which is called Best Job Search Tips for Age 60 Plus, and she provides practical advice and numerous resources for baby boomers who have reasons to continue working and for those who worry about how to fill their days without a job or something meaningful to do. The book, of course, is available on Amazon. So let's welcome Toby and find out some of the things that she's involved with. How are you today, Toby?
I am fine, and thank you for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. I'm sure that there are many of our listeners who are saying, oh boy, this is just for me, because I'm certainly past that age of 60 and nobody wants me. Nobody wants to hire me. As a matter of fact, I was with a person yet, two different stories, a person yesterday and one today who said, who's going to hire me at my age? And I think one was 64 and the other was just 52 or something. And then I had an email from someone who is in her late 70s who has been in Paris Vogue, Italian Vogue, I think Spanish Vogue, and didn't really become any of these things and has written two books for people over 60 and didn't do any of these things till she hit 60. And she said, I never knew it was going to be so much fun. So tell us a little bit about Toby and how you got into what you're doing now.
Well, as you said, I've done many things, but my primary interest has been human resources and job search. And I decided to write this book because there are a lot of people out there, whether they're in their 50s or in their 60s. We all know people who have reasons to continue working and are unsure about their employment opportunities in a youthful workplace. Many have to continue working for income, but like you said, some are even unsure how to fill their days. So this book was written for people who want to work and are unsure about their resources or unsure about what's realistically out there.
And I think that's probably the biggest question on people's minds is what is really out there. Now, I'm sure there are things dependent on where you live and how big your community is and whether there are, larger companies there or smaller companies there. But still, when someone hits 50, and especially when they hit 60, they say, well, there aren't too many opportunities out there because companies are afraid to hire me. So we know that, this book is called Best Job Search Tips for Age 60 Plus, but really, who is the audience for this book? I mean, anyone besides 60-year-olds?
Well, the audience is anyone, whether they're in their 50s or 60 plus, who is concerned about age discrimination and getting hired today. In addition, adult children who want to help their parents discover realistic work opportunities might consider this book as a resource for mom and dad.
Yeah, I think there are many people who, well, they have different reasons for wanting to keep working. One might be income, definitely. I mean, you can never have too much cash. You can always use it for something, whether it's to buy something you want or to help your kids or to go on a vacation or whatever. Plus, a lot of people don't want to stop working because they get energy from it. And so if they're around other people, it brings up the social aspect of things. They make new friends, etc. So there are so many reasons to keep working, providing, of course, you're healthy and so forth. But where does retirement come into this? I mean, um, do you find in your research that people want to retire? Do you find that people really don't want to retire? I mean, what's the viewpoint on it retiring at this point?
Well, I think it's all economic. Retirement isn't the perfect image of lounging on the beach anymore. I've seen estimates anywhere from 45% to 55% of baby boomers who cannot afford to retire. They need to work to maintain their daily life essentials, and they have few options. Now realize if this is 50% plus of all boomers who have no retirement funding, they need to work. And so what's the reasons? Well, the ups and downs of the economy. There's no job security anymore. Very few companies are offering pensions. And of course, those of us who are fortunate are living longer, some into our late 80s and 90s. And I have seen statistics that less than 1/3 of all boomers are confident that they will have enough to retire.
Well, I think that's true. I mean, I definitely think that's true. And I can see where, working and having, and especially if it's a meaningful job. I mean, it would really pain me to see people going back to work just for a paycheck. I would hope that whatever that paycheck is, big, small, medium, that the people are enjoying what they do. Have you looked at that part of it? How many enjoy whatever that second or third or fourth job is that they've taken?
Well, the hope certainly is that the kind of work you're doing gives you some satisfaction. Because if it doesn't, it's very hard to get up in the morning to go to it. So that is the ideal. But I suspect there are people who are working in positions that just help them make ends meet.
Well, that's such a tragedy though, because some of these people are so talented and have so many great skills. It's funny. I was doing a speech the other day to a medical group for people in Medicare age, and I called it "Living Life with Gusto." And one of the things I talked about was having a schedule. And everybody looked at me, and I said, "Look," I said, "I know that there are some of you sitting here right now who always say, 'I just can't seem to get anything done.' And yet when you were working, you got everything done. And it's because they had a schedule. They had to get certain things done at certain times. And I think that's a big reason for going back to work. Besides the economic, it keeps you stimulated. And my philosophy has always been people retire when they don't like what they're doing, so that they will have a chance to do what it is they want to do. But if you enjoy what you do and you are doing a great job of it, why should you retire? I mean, you look at many doctors, for example, who are still practicing, who are past the age of 65. And you look at other, in fact, I think it was in an AARP publication that I get, I don't remember, I think it was in the newsletter, that of the how many whatever Nobel Prize winners, that out of 12 Nobel Prize winners, 10 were over the age of 70. And so they were still contributing, still doing fabulous things, and had not lost their
No, you're absolutely right. We all want to continue contributing. We want purposeful lives. And you are right. When you don't have a schedule and time just passes, I think you lose your enthusiasm, your gusto, you become isolated. So working or volunteering serves many purposes, and the socialization part of it, as well, being social, as well as having deliverables or being accountable for some activity, is very important.
Yeah, it definitely is. But now we come to the nitty gritty. What are the realities of the work world today? I mean, if I am over 50, and in your case, you're talking about over 60, what are the realities of me being employable at something other than minimum wage?
Well, I think a lot has changed in the work world. It's absolutely true that job security doesn't exist anymore. And changes to the economic and business climate mean that most people have had multiple employers and positions during their careers. This is the new normal. But the good news is, just as we are discussing, that people are living longer and some of us are healthier, which means there are many productive years ahead. Many companies around 2000, the year 2000, worried about highly skilled retirement eligible workers leaving the workplace and creating a knowledge vacuum. This knowledge vacuum exists because companies did not recruit critical career specialties during difficult economic times. So a whole generation of employees were not hired. So older employees are very important because one, they have the expertise and they mentor, and by mentoring younger employees, they bring them this lost generation of workers is a problem. And these older employees have help staff and prepare the younger employees. So by doing this, these very highly skilled workers remained in the workplace and thus raised and expanded the age of working beyond 60 plus, which affects us all. If you'll remember, I think 15 years ago, it used to be over the hill at 40.
Yeah, I remember when you thought, well, I had my first business was a modeling school, modeling agency, and a matron model was considered a matron model. Now we're going back a lot of years at the age of 35. I mean, the average dress size at that time was a size 12. Now you've got models who are 35 and 40 who are still supermodels. And of course, now the average size is a 6 to an 8. So it's kind of interesting. I mean, how life has changed. And you're right. It used to be 40. I mean, you were over the hill.
But today, 60 plus is not unheard of. So you're asking, what would you do? What are some realistic jobs that you might consider? Well, it depends on, it depends on your interests, certainly. But I can tell you that the one thing you do have to realize that more than likely you are going to be interviewing with someone who is young enough to be your child. That is the first thing.
That's true. And that is intimidating,
Yes, and age discrimination is alive and well. And we mature workers have to be able to demonstrate that we can do the job, that we're up to date in our fields, we're energetic and can keep up with a younger work group, we're enthusiastic, and we have a youthful attitude. But very importantly, we have to demonstrate that we can work well with younger employees, both as colleagues as well as being supervised by them.
I think there are a couple things there in what you have just said, Toby. First of all, yeah, I definitely think we have to be able to get along with everyone, and especially if our new manager, let's say, is going to be half our age or our children's age. The second thing is not to be afraid to learn new skills, because yes, I can certainly tell you, I am certainly not up to date on a lot of technical skills, nor should I be in that position. I mean, that would not be something that would interest me. However, you've got to be able to do certain basic things, and you need to show that you're willing to learn. Now, I would argue that many of the people who are 60 plus have more energy than the younger generation, simply because they've been brought up on hard work. They've been brought up on you come at a certain time and you do the job until it's done and then you leave. Whereas a lot of the younger employees don't have that same purpose or allegiance or anything else. The one thing I'm curious about, though, if I were going back to work at 60, I wouldn't necessarily be looking for long term. In other words, I would be appreciative if it was, but I would imagine that if I went in for a place of employment, I would be happy for as long as I'm there, but would understand that that particular employment may come to an end, simply because that's just the way it is. And that's one of the reasons why some of these temporary staffing agencies, and some of them that then turn into a permanent position, is ideal, because you can do so many different jobs for a lot of different kinds of organizations and really get some good background and experience from that.
You are so right. And let me give you some possibilities of the type of work that someone, whether they're 50 or 60 years old, might consider. Do you have expertise that someone will pay for? Well, if you do, becoming a consultant or a freelancer is a definite possibility. Today, companies use contractors who are frequently in the age 60 plus range. Many employers are quite receptive to working with boomers on a contractual basis. So becoming a contractor is a real possibility. Now, do you need some income? You do want to work, but you do want some time for yourself? Part-time work might be just the right thing. Do you want to be your own boss? Do you have the mental, physical, and financial wherewithal to undertake a business venture? If so, becoming an entrepreneur might be your ticket. And of course, there's always volunteering. I think Winston Churchill said it so well. You make a living by what you get. You make a life by what you give.
Well, that's true, and I think all of those options are very, very important. And so, other than people thinking you're too old or not having the technical skills or not being able to get along with somebody younger than you who is telling you what to do, what are some of the other challenges that mature workers face?
Well, I think they really face the stereotypes of either a mature worker not needing to work, just wanting to work, and possibly taking a job away from a younger worker, or possibly by staying in the workforce, preventing a younger worker from getting a promotion. To the other stereotype of a mature worker not being up to date, not being energetic enough to keep up with a younger workforce. So they're both extremes. One, you don't need to work, but you are. And the other is you're really not capable, or you just don't have the expertise and you're still trying to get a job.
Yeah, I think there's certainly both sides of the coin. I think there are both those situations. I love that movie, The Intern, with Robert De Niro. I just thought that was such a hoot. And I really enjoyed it because it showed both sides of the fence and how, the kids eventually came around to him. But I think that there's certainly a part of all of this that we have to pay attention to. And I mean, because it is a reality of today's world. And we have to look at this and say, okay, what are these options for mature workers now? You've just rattled off a whole bunch of them. And you mentioned volunteering. And I know volunteering is important and good if I want to occupy my time, if I want to provide somebody with the knowledge that I have, and if I can really provide something that other people can't do. So I would be a very effective volunteer in that particular situation. However, you could also use volunteering even for a short period of time. If you volunteer for even 6 months, if you can afford to do that, to get the experience that you may need in a particular position. So what have you found out about volunteering?
Well, if you are looking for a position, volunteering gives you a break from your job search, gets you out of the house, and doing something useful and contributing to society. The other part of it is you may also connect with someone who can help you with your job search. And if you're doing a bang up volunteering job, you never know, you may be offered a position. So volunteering has a lot of purposes. I think one thing that is essential is that volunteering be viewed as an unpaid job with the same commitment you would give to a paid position.
Well, I mean, I totally agree with you. I think if you're going to volunteer for something, you still have the same responsibilities, you still have the same accountability, and you still have the same all of that you would have working for someone, because when you're a volunteer, they do expect you, and they plan their activities based on when you're going to be there. And you're absolutely right. There are times when it turns into a job, could be full-time, could be part-time, or there are people there in the group that you're working with who know of other positions. I'm very fortunate. I run a mastermind group for not-for-profits, and I ran that this morning. And it was interesting because somebody was saying, well, she was having this particular problem with a particular person who works for her. And one of the other people said, oh, I have the person who would be perfect for this. And you just get to know people if you are around all these different positions and all these different things. So I totally agree with you that there are certainly ways to use volunteering as an effective way to mine, if you want to call it that, mine for jobs and so forth. I guess we have a few minutes left this segment, and I really am interested, Toby, in the major question you have been asked by the baby boomers you serve.
I think the main question that they really ask, much like some of the people they are very pessimistic about getting hired. They really believe that it's a young person's world, work world, and they have to get their confidence up. They have to learn how to job search effectively, which includes networking. Networking is incredibly important, including the 6 degrees of separation, which I'm sure you're aware of.
Right.
That we are all connected to each other. I can give you an example. John, much like the example you gave, John, an engineer, was laid off. He told his family about it. He told his friends, his church, his gym, as well as some of the groups he was a member of. Well, by telling all of these people, they told their business contacts. Ultimately, John learned about an unadvertised position. He interviewed for it, and he was hired. He learned about a position before it became public. And that is an ideal situation. And that is what networking accomplishes.
And we're going to talk about more about networking when we come back. But I do want to bring out one point that you just said, and that was many of your best positions are not advertised. And they are gotten because somebody knows somebody who knows somebody. And that's also a fantastic reason for networking. And we will get to that when we come back from our break. Very interesting, Toby, how we have to look at all of this. Some of us never thinking that at the age of 60 or 65 or 70, we would be facing these issues, but there they are. And we need to be prepared for them. And that's That's one of the things that is really important. And of course, we'll talk a little bit about the entrepreneurial spirit as well, because that certainly faces me. I would not be a very good hire because I don't like working for anybody. I like working for myself and making my own decisions. But we'll get to all of that when we come back. My guest has been so far Toby Haberkorn, and Toby is an executive search specialist. She works with a 60 plus. She is a certified job search strategist. So stay with us. We'll be right back. You've had the opportunity to get to know me over the last few years, and I'd like to get to know you as well. One of the things I'm offering is training for the media. I have a wonderful program that will get you ready for any radio or TV interview you might be offered. Many of you are doing wonderful things, but no one knows about them. Others of you are successful and wonder, what's next? Whether you're in a business or have a special cause or a specific event you're promoting, media can help. And I can help you master your message so you can master the media. If this sounds interesting to you, email me at gaylecarson13@gmail.com with media training in the subject line. I promise I will be in touch.